Hey guys, Aldo J here on a Saturday morning. I know I'm not in a very good spot. The visuals are not that great, but then again, you don't want my visuals. I've been doing jogging and running, and the funny thing is, you're never gonna guess where I'm at, right? You might think this is a little crazy and morbid, but I'm in a cemetery right now, Colestown Cemetery here in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. This is a very serene place. A lot of people walk their dogs here. They walk their children in strollers. There's a lot of walkers, joggers, the whole deal. And, you know, I stay here a lot for maybe spend hours sometimes walking early in the morning because it's serene, it's quiet. And I usually start and or finish a workout in this park. It's really cool because when you think about it, if you look at some of these graves, there's history here. I believe this cemetery is one of the oldest, certainly in this area. The early settlers, pilgrim settlers in the late 1600s, I believe, when they came to this country, they settled here. If you look out in the distance, there's homes on Chapel Avenue. They used to be dirt roads. So this area used to be called Colestown. Then I believe years later it became Delaware Township. And then in the 60s, 1960s, maybe 61, 2, I may be off on the date or the year, but is when it became Cherry Hill, right? But you'll see a lot of these graves tell you a lot about history, okay? And you know, you look at graves and you see that some people obviously in those days didn't live very long. When I look at some graves and I see that they lived to be 80, 90 years old, that was impressive then, with no vaccines. You know, you had a neighborhood or a town doctor, but they didn't have obviously the techniques and the technology and the medicines. People died from everything, right? If you got the flu back then, chances are you were not going to make it, especially if you were an infant or an elderly person, or even didn't matter, right? Smallpox, chicken pox, all these little things that we take for granted today. You know, you look around here and you say, wow, these people didn't have what we have. But so I like to walk around here for a lot of reasons, not only because it's quiet and I can concentrate, I can get my exercise in. I sometimes put 5-6 miles in here. People are like, who is this guy? Does he live here? But like I said, from a musician standpoint, I do a lot of thinking. And when it's quiet, I think of a lot of songs. I think of a lot of melodies come to mind. I think of, wow, I can transition the song doing this. Because I might look at something here. You're dealing with death, but you're also dealing with somebody's life. You look at a gravestone and you say, wow, that person only lived to be 5 years old or 6 years old or 80, like I said, you know. And I think of things. That to me is a creative way to come up with a song. It may be a melancholy song. It may be about losing somebody, which we know death is about, right? But it's also about rebirth. You can think about somebody being reborn very soon. You know, the Bible talks about that kind of stuff, of resurrection and stuff. But I mean, songs, you really can come up with a lot of different ideas when you involve yourself in nature and in history. And like I said before in other videos, you can go to the Jersey Shore, right? You can be on the top of a mountain skiing downward, and something about that landscape and environment opens your mind up to creativity. You know, I can't believe what I see in here. You know, I go to the end of the cemetery and butt up against the stone, the wall, actually it's a cyclone fence, is a grave from somebody that died 200 years ago. But then I look and I see, you know, graves where there's big monuments, and in the background you could see like a really big mausoleum building and stuff, which is amazing. Like, how did somebody afford something like that then? They must have been pretty wealthy versus somebody that's buried at the end of the cemetery in a little grave was probably not as well off. Then you've got these crypts that are squared off with walls, cement walls or granite walls, and you know, they have several family members buried in there. And again, it's historical. Somebody that's more well off, a family who could have been, you know, related to a senator. There's a lot of famous people from 200-300 years ago, some that were even, I believe, part of the Declaration of Independence. But again, you see these mausoleums and things. It's just really cool to me. And like I said, it's quiet. Right now, it looks like I'm the only idiot here. But probably within the next couple hours, there's going to be people out here. I did see somebody earlier jogging past me when I did my early run. But it's just, like I said, it's quiet. There's the, let's see, the mausoleum I was talking about is right over here. Is that it? Yeah. I mean, like I said, today you try to afford something like that, could be 100,000, couple 100,000, depending on the size of it. I'm almost near where I was telling you. I like the history about it, you know. And I come to find out my sister Dina actually likes visiting cemeteries, historical cemeteries. For me, this isn't more of a visit. I live not far from here. It's just a great place to walk. It's quiet. Like I said, it's a great place to get some physical activity. I've met a lot of few people here that I talked to about music. I ran into another guitar player and musician like myself. But here's what I'm getting at. Here you go. This is the Crump family, 1871 to 1918, 1847 to 1920. So you can see some of these people actually lived fairly long. But notice there's other names in here that were probably, you know, relatives, brother-in-law, sister-in-law. And this whole grave is squared off with these columns. And you know, again, this is not just something that the average person could have afforded 200-300 years ago. There's no way, right? Lars Lear, you know, and again, this history is really cool because you can actually think of a song. Here you go, 1818. This person was a very young person, Mary Lars Lear. And you can see all the family members that are buried in this same area under the ground. So again, versus maybe a small little stone that is representative of more of a lay person, somebody that could have even been, back in the day, slaves, buried at the very end of the cemetery. Here you go. Here's another small little grave that is so bad now you can't really make out the inscription. Just says that they were born, and I can't really catch it out here, 1888. So you see, it could have been a baby, you know, an infant that died young. It's a shame when you see these things. But again, this history, this environment, the quietness of it is what you don't realize. Many musicians and many songs that you hear day in and day out are written in places like this, on lakes, on beaches. You know, I can't remember the song, but somebody wrote a song while flying in an airplane, right? Another person wrote a song while they were in a church, attending a wedding ceremony. And again, don't take the environment away that you like for granted. It might be something that can help you generate ideas with songs, right? Here's what I was talking about. Another grave where there's a whole entire family, the Wilson family. To my husband, Charles Wilson, son of Ahab and Ann Wilson. I hope that's not Ann Wilson from Heart. I doubt it. Look at this, born August 25th, 1820. and died May 28th, 1884. This person was 64 years old, right? Wow, Aldo, you're a good mathematician. No, but what I'm trying to get at is that 64 was pretty good to live that age at that time. With again, no vaccinations. You know, people went to the doctor when they were sick. There was no such thing as a health check. You know, hey doc, check my blood pressure. It wasn't like that. You know, so again, I know I got off topic like I typically do, but to anybody out there that's an unsigned artist like Hygh Risque, and you're thinking of ideas, now I'm giving you a visual. I know I did videos on this before. Come out to your favorite place, whatever that may be. I'm not saying that I like to go to cemeteries all the time, but I'm saying this is the place where I get in that frame of mind and I'm able to write. I'm able to come up with ideas. Lately, I've been doing that. You know, Hearts Collide. I didn't write Hearts Collide in a cemetery. But a lot of, like I said, a lot of people position themselves in this type of environment intentionally to give them that environment that separates them from their day-to-day reality and so forth. Here's the beginning of, you could see the old entrance to this cemetery is really cool. Now we're getting to the nitty-gritty of gravestones that are here from the longest time. There might be 1700s up here, but a lot of these are people mixed in. Like again, if you had something like this, you had a few bucks on you. It's not the average thing that somebody would have gotten in those days. You know, people were poor, but the ones that were well off, they had these big squared off things with their, here's a person right here, 1860, Zebulon Batten, 1860 to 1936. I know there's more in the front where the times are a lot earlier. I wish I can remember where the 1600s were. Thomas Albertson, 1820 to 1900. So wow, this person lived to be 80 years old right here. Unheard of in that time, right? Not unheard of, but very, very rare. Let's just say that. But look at this architecture. This architecture here has been almost 400 years, right? Sorry, I know there's a lot of shadows and I'm bouncing all over the place. But this is, for the most part, the original stone, the original staircase, right? The original stone walls from this place here. Sorry, I know I'm not very picture pretty today from running around for the last couple hours. Here's the office. Samuel Coles is the person that actually, look at that. He was born in 1635. So he was what? Like close to 60 years old, 58, whatever. Okay? This land was granted to him by William Penn. So you could see the historical nature of this particular cemetery. If I go out to the front and everybody in the whole Cherry Hill area is like, what is this idiot doing? There's the entrance to it. So again, history's here. I like to come here for the sole reason of putting reality away, coming up with an idea. I look at everything here. I think of the history, the times, the people. I think of the great loss of having a child and holding that child in your arms and loving that child, and the next thing you know, that child dies of a terrible disease. Sorry, I look like Patrick Swayze now in Ghost. Let me get out of here. But you see my point. When you involve yourself in such deep thought, when you're in especially a writer's cramp, if you're a writer's block, you come up with some of the things that you go, geez, I came up with that. And that's my new mindset right now. I just find out, again, when you're in the environment that maybe you're not comfortable with, the day-to-day, if you feel like you're in a rut, do something a little different and you'll be surprised at what you can come up with. Hopefully that's going to help me with some new material that I'm doing for my Aldo J project here. So Aldo J here on a Saturday in July. What is it? July 25th? I don't know. One of them days. But I'm going to sign off now. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. Keep on rocking, guys. See you soon. Take care.